Hi, my name is Mackie Haynes, and I'm sorry if this isn't my best theory competency video, or if to cut in and out because of coughing, because as I mentioned to you prior, both of my parents have tested positive, and I believe I might also have it now. Anyways, let's dive into today's theory, which is the uncertain reduction theory of Charles Berger. A brief rundown of this theory is that when people meet, their primary concern is to reduce uncertainty about each other and their relationship. The more you talk, self-disclose, find similarities, and discover shared communication networks, the predictability will increase and uncertainty will decrease. So which of the 8 traditions of communication theory does it belong to? The uncertainty reduction theory fits in well with the socio-psychological tradition of communication theory. Scholars and theorists in this tradition believe that there are these certain truths within communication that can only be discovered through really attentive examination and observation. The socio-psychological tradition embodies the scientific and the objective perspective of communication theory. When you're applying this tradition, you're supposed to look for cause and effect relationships that will in turn help you predict the result for when people actually communicate. This helps you be able to find links and discover the predictability of people and their communication. Okay, now let's go more in depth studying the uncertainty reduction theory. Charles Berger notes that the beginnings of personal relationships are full of uncertainties. The uncertainty reduction theory focuses on how human connection is used to gain knowledge and create understanding. But what makes us want to reduce uncertainty? Well, if you know you'll interact with someone again in the future, if there's some sort of incentive, or if the person's kind of weird, then you're more likely to want to reduce the uncertainty and get to know someone better or figure them out. Berger heavily emphasizes our interest and inferences on why people do what they do. This idea was heavily influenced by Fritz Heider's attribution theory. There are at least 2 types of uncertainty that we face in the world. The first is behavioral questions like, should I shake his hand or give him a side hug? Then there's cognitive questions like, what do they do for a living? Do they enjoy their family? This theory is about finding certainty and uncertainty. Berger created a series of axioms in order to explain the connection between 8 key variables and uncertainty. Axiom 1 is verbal communication. The idea that the more you verbally communicate, the level of uncertainty will decrease. Axiom 2 is nonverbal one. The idea that the more you have positive nonverbals with each other, uncertainty will decrease. Axiom 3, information seeking. The idea that the more uncertainty decreases, the less information you will seek. Axiom 4, self-disclosure. The idea that low levels of uncertainty produce high levels of intimacy. Axiom 5, reciprocity. The idea that if there's shared uncertainty between people, they are more likely to reciprocate information. Axiom 6, similarity. The idea that the more similarities you discover, the more uncertainty decreases. Axiom 7, liking. The idea that the less uncertain you are about someone, the more you like them. And lastly, Axiom 8, shared networks, which is all about the idea if y'all share communication networks, then you will be less uncertain about someone. Berger used these 8 axioms to create 28 theorems that suggest a comprehensive theory of interpersonal developments, all based on the idea of how important it is in communication to reduce uncertainty when interacting with others. Now, we have 7 minutes is not enough time to go into all 28 of those theorems, but that's what you get. Now, there are 3 main strategies in reducing uncertainty, and I believe it's best if you actually do a combination of all 3. The first strategy would be to take a passive approach. An example of this would be if you saw someone in your class that you maybe thought was, I don't know, cute or something, but you were scared to approach them. We live in a very digital world, so instead you go home that night and you find them on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, everything you can get your hands on. This strategy allows you to learn more about them, decrease some uncertainty, and yet you never have to actually put yourself out there. However, let's say that when you're exploring this person passively, you really like what you see and you want to take it to the next step and reduce even more uncertainty. So if you're not quite ready to talk to them, you might approach someone who knows them. If while you were insta-stalking them, you figured out that one of your close friends is really good friends with them, you would be inclined to approach your friend and ask them questions. This is the active strategy. If it allows you to gain more knowledge in a more comfortable setting than approaching this uncertain person. So let's say you ask your friend about them and you try to figure out what they're interested in, if they're single, and other questions like that will help you mold the encounter that you desire in your head. Then finally, it's time for the interactive strategy. You must finally engage with this person. After careful research and helpful conversations, you have reduced enough uncertainty where you feel like you can stop them after class and ask if they'd like to study with you, or grab a cup of coffee. The interactive stage is when you actually communicate with the person and reduce uncertainty through conversation and time. Now, this isn't even kind of everything that there is to the uncertainty reduction theory, but these are the main aspects and ideas regarding this theory. 7 minutes certainly isn't enough time to go into all 28 theorems. This theory is the belief that everyone is scared of the uncertain, and how it will take certain means to reduce these feelings. But for the fourth and final time, I will remind you that there is no such thing as a perfect theory. So what are the main critiques of this theory? The first major critique is Theorem 17. This idea that the more you like people, the less information you seek out about them. This theorem doesn't really click and doesn't sit well with a lot of people. It would actually make more sense to say the opposite. Now, since the theorems come directly from the axioms, you would have to say that axiom 3 or axiom 7 must also have a flaw. There's also a major critique that there's no real proof that we are more motivated to reduce uncertainty if there's a possibility for future interaction, incentive value, or if someone's kind of weird. One of the last main critiques comes in the form of another theory. This theory is the predicted outcome value, which gets at the idea that the beginning of relationships are motivated by its predicted outcome value, not motivated by trying to figure out who this person is, like Berger might suggest. And then there's a theorist, Walid Afifi, who proposed that we aren't motivated to reduce uncertainty, rather we're motivated to reduce our own anxiety, in his theory of motivated information management. Although there are some major critiques surrounding this theory, and some people even question its validity as a whole, they can't take away the fact that the uncertainty reduction theory has been a major contribution to communication studies and future theorists. It was one of the very first prototypes of what an objective theory should look like. His theory is easy to test, allows you to make predictions, and has inspired the next waves of communication research. So that was my fourth and final theory competency video. Thank you so much for this class. I have learned a ton, and I've loved the way that this class was structured. So hope you have a great day. Goodbye, and welcome.